Well, it is 6 p.m. on Monday, July 14th. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Winooski City Council. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Deputy Mayor Thomas Renner.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up is agenda review. Any concerns about the order this evening? No?
No.
Okay. Next up is public comments. This is time reserved for comments about items not on this evening's agenda. Would you like to come up to me? And if you could please state your name for the record.
My name is Thomas Locatell. I live in Winooski. And I'm here because I'm just going to be showing up to hopefully get this project that I started for Winooski, the pavilion up at Landry Park, bringing it to everyone's attention and hopefully maybe answering questions, having some questions of my own answered, but I'm pretty sure I covered it mostly last week. But I do have somewhat of an update. I got an email from Nate to Jess, and apparently he's working on coming up with an official plan for this thing so that it could go before the building department, whomever it has to go to. I thought that was encouraging. I don't know if that was a coincidence or if it had something to do with me being here last week, but I'm taking it as the latter, so I'm just going to keep showing up. And I would really like to see this happen. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on this thing. Not recently, like I said before, it was done almost 2 years ago. And now I'm realizing I'm the one who has to go forward and make this thing sort of happen. And I could appreciate any help that anyone here might have, or suggestions or advice on what I need to do next. As I said before, I know it's probably just going to come down to, is this something that the city would be willing to invest in, and take it from there. And I'm not going to be pushy about it, but I will continue to show up, and hopefully I'm going to see some movement on it.
Thank you. I did speak with Elaine after the last meeting. I know that there is some like engineering and permitting required. Unfortunately, our community services director was out, so we don't have all of the details ready for this evening. So the goal then again is to get back to you later this week.
Yeah, if Ray is going to be on board with it, now would be a good time for him to really jump in, because I've been working with him on this, but I feel like it's not really moving fast enough for me to be able to decide what, or find out even if this is going to happen or not this year. If not, then what's the deal for maybe next year, or just some kind of, some kind of a plan going forward. I have sort of done a thumbnail sketch of how much time I think it would take. And if, the permit and the financing and everything was all done and approved, I'm looking at 2 months tops to have this thing done.
Okay.
Once, okay, here we are, let's go. That's when I can jump into action.
Should be able to have some more information this week. Sorry for another
Oh, no,
delay.
I'm not expecting, I was sort of like, should I go? Am I going to be like a nag? No, I don't want to be like that. I just want to
No
bring
worries.
it forward, because I've been in the background and I haven't brought it forward and nobody really knows me. This is a chance for anybody here to ask questions about what I'm up to, raise their own concerns, doubts, what have you.
We'll appreciate you coming in,
Okay.
keeping it on our radar.
And I have a little update actually. At our Safe, Healthy, Connected People meeting, Ray spoke about this with the commission, and he is actively working on it, but there is just, I believe it was creating like official schematics of the piece so that it can be sent to engineers.
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's not as easy as it sounds, maybe the way I described
Well,
it. But
I took
so he
it-
is still actively working on it. And I know he had it on his docket to reach out to you once he was
It's
unpacking his
encouraging
template.
that I got that email from Nate to Jess. I'm sure you know who he is. And his company is very well versed in this kind of stuff, whereas I am not so much. I'm more on the other end of those kind of things. To get it done. So anyway, that's all. No one spelled it out to me. I mean, Ray had sent me an email, and then almost immediately Nate had sent me an email to get some details on the structure. And I took that as meaning that Ray got a hold of Nate, because he had talked about that, and now Nate's moving forward to make it into an official looking plan as opposed to a back of the napkin deal.
We couldn't confirm, but that sounds likely. To be
Okay,
what
I would
happened.
like some update on that. I mean, it would
Sure.
be nice. Put me in direct contact with Nate. I did email him back with his question, 2 questions. It would be great to have a meeting with Ray, Nate, and myself.
We'll pass it along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did anyone online have a public comments? I think folks may be here for agenda items. Okay, seeing no further comment, we'll move to our consent agenda. So we have our council minutes from July 7th, the payroll warrant from June 22 to July 5, the accounts payable warrant for July 9, the appointment of an acting zoning administrator, Main Street Revitalization Project Step 3 Construction Phase Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, and the Downtown Winooski Memorandum of Understanding. Any concerns about the consent agenda this evening? No. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to council reports. Would you like to start, Thomas?
Happy to. So Safe Health Connected people met last week. A few updates from Nate. The Thrive Summer program is doing really well. Having a good time. And the state stopped by to do their inspection, their surprise inspection, and Ray and the team got really good feedback from the state, so that's always encouraging. Some residents may recall that the pool has been shut down a couple of times. That was due to the pool chemical skimmer machine that was blowing a fuse, so they weren't able to regulate all of the chemicals in the pool correctly. So important to not let people swim while that is happening. Issue's been fixed, an electrician came in, so pool is good to go again. A new seasonal park staffer started last week as well. So if folks see Connor roaming around, say hi. The team's really excited to have him helping out for the summer. Talking about our parks, there are some more cleanup days where residents can help clean up and maintain our trails. So for Memorial Park, nope, that's passed. There was one July 11th, but the next one is October 10th. Cassavant, there's one on July 17th and October 17th. And then for Gilbert, there is one on October 24th. If you want to find out more information, you can find that on the city's website. And then the business that the commission was attending to that night was the public art policy. So Ray came up with a draft that looked pretty good, and the commission just started going over that draft. Didn't make it all the way through. It's pretty extensive, which is what we wanted. So they're going to take that up at the next meeting. And I'm sure once they kind of do that first draft, they'll do a few more before we see it. But it was really great to see that, as I know it's something we've all talked about at this table. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, the Finance Commission met to finalize the recommendations on the small business loan program, which we will see on tonight's agenda. We are still seeking 3 members for that commission. If anyone is interested in serving on a once a month meeting body that focuses on the economic vitality of Winooski. The Planning Commission also met to review proposed amendments that would add clarity to our zoning regulations about the review process for subdivisions and planned unit developments. This is part of an ongoing effort to keep tightening up language, making things a little more clear to applicants. Ongoing conversation, so nothing moving rapidly to us at this time. That's it for me.
Awesome. I am covering while Counselor Oakleaf is away, the Municipal Infrastructure Commission meeting, which is going to be on Thursday this week at 6:30. I believe there'll be a Zoom option, and more details on that is going to come out on the city website shortly. Inclusion and Belonging Commission, again, still looking for members. Our next commission meeting for Inclusion and Belonging is going to be on August 21st, so still a little ways away.
All right, thank you. Next up is city updates. Elaine.
Yes, thank you. The city of Winooski and downtown Winooski have launched the Gift Your Community campaign to support Main Street businesses during our big construction project on Main Street. We're encouraging everyone to buy gift certificates as a way to provide immediate financial help while creating future joy, whether it's for birthdays, graduations, employee appreciation, or just because. Every gift certificate you purchase directly from a business on Main Street is an amazing way to put money directly into their hands when they need it most. While construction creates temporary challenges, these purchases create permanent connections between our community and the wide variety of businesses that make Winooski special. You can visit downtownwinooski.org/mosaic to learn more. Green Mountain Power has scheduled a planned power outage in Winooski to make service upgrades related to the Main Street revitalization project. These outages are on Thursday, July 17th, approximately from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Affected streets include George Street, Franklin Street, Thornton Street, Bellevue, Russell, Hood, Pleasant, Solarview, and Richard. To see the specific locations and full details, please see the news update section of our website at winooskivt.gov. Customers impacted by this outage will be contacted directly by Green Mountain Power ahead of time. If you have questions, please contact Green Mountain Power at 888-835-4672. Homeowners in Winooski are invited to attend our accessory dwelling unit workshop on July 23rd. And accessory dwelling units are also called ADUs. They're a smaller independent dwelling unit that is located on the same lot as an existing single-family home, duplex, or triplex. They're used to be called like in-law apartments. Building them can offer an additional source of income, and it's an option to help address Vermont's housing crisis. During the workshop, homeowners will discover the benefits of ADUs and the process required to build them in Winooski. Learn about Act 181 and the Vermont Housing Improvement Program, which can provide funding to ADU projects, and hear from a panel of local ADU owners. A Zoom option is available, and the event will be recorded by Town Meeting TV for viewing later online if you can't attend. Finally, we're hosting a blood drive at the Senior Center on July 18th. Your donations help save lives. Visit the news updates section on our website to make your appointment. All participants will receive a free Fandango movie ticket.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, moving into our regular items. First up, we have the public hearing, which was noticed for consideration of condemnation for temporary easement for the Burlington-Winooski Bridge project. We began this hearing at our June 25th meeting and took a hiatus to reconvene this evening to allow the property owner to come present to us. So with that, I want to turn it over to you folks. If you could please introduce everyone who is joining, and then we're here to listen.
Well, thank you. Hopefully, Steve, you can hear us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Russell Barr. I'm here with Jake Evans. We're both attorneys on behalf of Adam Dubrow. And we're here, good faith, try to work with council members in the city. We do want to pose two outstanding objections, if nothing more than for the record. And we pointed this out in our June 25th, 2025 correspondence to the council members. One of them, of course, is we do object, and we've had correspondence with your council about the legal proceeding and the veracity, and this is not meant to any disrespect to the council members, of the form that we're in right now. We maintain that it's pretty clear under the Vermont law that this is a state highway subject to a particular law, and we should be in a courtroom. But nonetheless, we're here with you, good faith. We're essentially hoping that you look carefully at the documents and make a decision that may be able to short circuit some of the legal wrangling that may take, otherwise we're all familiar in our country that goes on and on and on. The second point that I want to make clear is a standing objection as to necessity. We're here to discuss value. We do fundamentally object to taking a citizen's property in this situation where the entire burden falls on one taxpayer, one citizen, for what appears to be a manner or structure to save other people money. And that is kind of against, without getting into the details, the U.S. Constitution. But again, that's for probably a different forum. But hopefully we can avoid some of the fighting if we can come to an actual resolution on value. And we're here to talk about value. HBU, what is that? And I'm sure that the council members have become quick studies on best value in a condemnation hearing. So what you're going to hear from us tonight, you're going to hear from Adam. I think he's going to add some context. I think he's going to talk a little bit about the report that was prepared for V-Trans by Mr. Martin Appraisals, and discuss some crystal clear factual mistakes. And then you're going to hear from our appraiser, who is actually a nationally known with a tremendous amount of experience in Vermont as well, appraising properties. He is a managing director of HBS, Brian Basima. This is what he does. And we're going to have him available by Zoom. Hopefully he's going to link in. Adam is here. Had a little bit of trouble getting here from Colorado. I think you're going to hear a little bit about Adam's connection to the city, that he's not some interloper, that he's been here, part of Vermont for decades. I think at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, let's start with Adam, because I could probably lay it all out, but I think you want to hear from actually the property owner and then our expert. Okay.
Sounds good.
So,
Adam, could you pull the microphone towards you? Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah.
So I'm Adam Dubroff, owner of Winooski Hotel Group, Lot 9. And as is my background, I've been in the hospitality industry for over 40 years, worked in a variety of hotel and restaurant projects all around the country, worked with Marriott, Hilton, and boutique hotel projects, doing development management. First started working in Vermont, 1979, in Killington, and was a reservations agent there. Then in the 1980s, I ran a nightclub and restaurant in Stowe, Vermont called the Baggy Knees. And then later in the 80s, in the 90s, I was part of a family business where we developed the Residence Inn by Marriott in Williston, which happened to be the first Marriott property in all of Vermont. So I've been around Vermont a lot and a lot of time, and first started spending time in Winooski in the 80s, and distinctly remember going to Sneakers and Papa Frank's, and my cousin was one of the first tenants in the Woolen Mill back in the 80s, and always identified Winooski as a great town. And in 2014, when I was introduced to the property, I was very excited knowing that the environment here was a lot of fun. To bring a hotel into town on Lot 9 was an exciting opportunity compared to all the different projects I've seen around the country. And when we bought the property, there was also a development agreement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a development agreement, but it seemed to be a fast track to get the hotel developed. And as long as we followed the master plan design guidelines, we'd move through the process more quickly. Here we are. And as it relates to what the Martin appraisal stated regarding that there were approvals for this site. This is looking at the recording from June 25th. There was a Act 250 master plan permit in place that was, I believe, expired, but there were never any approvals specifically for Lot 9. And that was a process we worked together with the city on to make a joint amendment. And since 2014, we had design approvals with the city in 2014, 2016, 2017, and then in 2021. So we've been before council many times. Regarding Mr. Martin's appraisal, and I think Elaine, and you brought up the parking is available for the project, and where the appraisal did not say that there was parking. And in the packet that we sent you earlier, there were documented references for parking. And I don't know if you need me to go through each of those, or if you have looked at those and acknowledged that there is parking.
Yeah, our city manager did confirm that at the last discussion.
Okay.
Well, to be clear, that parking had been offered.
Right.
There's no agreement or anything in place.
Correct.
But I'm just chiming for 1 second, just to clear up one piece of this, which is during the prior meeting, there was some discussion around when parking became available relative to the appraisal being conducted, which I guess was in August or September of 23, and sorry, 24. And we have email communications from the city's former council offering enough parking for up to 200 spaces for a hotel in April of 2024. So based on just what we were provided from the city, it seems like the parking was available prior to the appraisal, during, and after. And we have copies of see those.
How would you like us to handle the exhibits? You're accepting the exhibits that we gave you. I know it's kind of a quasi-judicial situation, but we have filed with you those documents. And essentially what those documents make clear is that prior to the Martin appraisal, there was parking available for a hotel. During the Martin appraisal, there was parking available for a hotel. And subsequent to the Martin appraisal, there was parking available for a hotel. And it's outlined in, you've got the September 2023 NETI agreement, was actually signed either by the city in August 2023 and then NETI in September of 23. It is October 23 when the Martin appraisal came out that made the bold assertion that there was no parking. We really want to focus. Now, we understand that we're much more familiar with the file. That's what we do. We're working, and this is the owner of the property. But I think it cannot be overstated enough that the Martin appraisal is fundamentally flawed by pure, clear, documented evidence. So in August and September of 23, just to recap, there was an agreement providing for parking on lot 7D. And as a footnote, the lot 7D, that was a lot in the city that was actually offered to Adam on a letter of intent to use parking if needed to be. So what's interesting is that there's now a hotel on a lot that was actually had a letter of intent that said, to the extent you're going to build your hotel, because we want to work with you on the development agreement. And this was before the bridge construction was contemplated, either behind closed doors or in open public. So then you have the Martin appraisal in 2023 where he makes that assertion. And then in April 11th of 2024, previous city council had a resolution proposal that Jake was kind enough to point out, saying there's up to 200 spaces. And then
Sorry.
yeah.
As you're talking through these documents, would you be able to tell us where in the large
Absolutely.
PDF we can find
Yeah.
them?
So the,
This one is not part of the packet that was sent over.
And we'll give
on the
that to you.
25th,
Okay.
Only because it was during that conversation on the 25th where there seemed to be some acknowledgement that parking is available now, but there wasn't parking at the time the appraisal was conducted. So this is just the other piece of the puzzle saying, this is preceding the appraisal being conducted. So we got before, during, and after communications or other agreements evidencing an availability of parking for a hotel in the municipal.
we've marked it as Exhibit AA. I can hand this to you if you'd like me to. And then I will tell you where each exhibit is. And to your precise question, you've got the NETI agreement, which is marked as Exhibit G in our October 25th, 2025 correspondence. Of course, you have the Martin appraisal, which is marked as Exhibit A in our correspondence. It's an attachment. You have the previous council, De Palma's resolution that I just gave you marked as Exhibit AA. And then there is another exhibit, BB, that we're going to at least show you as far as of May 2025, there was parking available as an offer of a resolution on this issue. You also have Exhibit E, which is July 27, 2023, Robert Kleinfelter V-Trans appraisal to the V-Trans appraiser, making the statement that the parking should be, we have to do this appraisal ASAP because there is going to be parking available. Now, the one thing I could say in this room is I definitely have the most experience in litigation, in courtrooms. I've been doing it forever. Is not always happens that you actually have a document that states the actual what's going on here. So we included that because it's important to understand that you've got organizations, you've got cities, you've got the state that are taking positions that are adverse to a citizen and are asking for a condemnation when in fact it's now from the documents very clear that parking is available. So anyway, we just wanted to sort of bookend that and make it clear, and hopefully we are. Another point, if I may, if you're going to get to that, is a V-Trans actually made an offer to Adam on May 3rd, 2024, and that is marked as Exhibit I in your package. An opening offer to a resolution that said that the property, that they were willing to pay $1.6 million. So you've got a May 2024 correspondence from V-Trans offering an amount of money that is, I don't even know, substantially outside the realm of what your hired, the state's hired appraisal, formal appraisal comes at it under 400. So in any event, we just wanted to bookend that point to tie in the documents that we sort of laid out for you in that submission to you last month. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about as far as
No.
parking or?
I don't think so. Just available for questions.
Yeah, we are most definitely here, and we appreciate any questions that you may have, and hopefully we can answer them or supply documents to support our position, which I think we've done at this hearing now in supplement to the June 25th, 2025 correspondence that we sent you.
Well, so I do have a question about this April 11th, 2024 email from City's Council offering parking that says subject to the contingencies stated in the term sheet. And so I'm wondering from what your interpretation is then of the contingencies and how that translates to parking being available.
You want to?
Sure, yeah. There's a term sheet where we supply it because certain communications are protected in terms of settlement discussions. Being that this is an open public forum, we wanted to try and maintain some discretion around that. There's a small redaction in that email that concerns the actual subject matter of the settlement offer. The whole point of just presenting the email here is the acknowledgement that there is space in the garage for cars to park for a 100-room hotel. The city should have access to that actual settlement term sheet. The contingencies in there have to do with other property owners who have contractual rights to spaces, and just in terms of how they're allocating those spaces between, I believe it's Cascades and
Ellen?
Can you come up, please?
So if council would like to hear more about that, I do have those emails pulled up. Those contingencies, we could not guarantee in that term sheet, but the reason why I was saying that they are now available and they weren't then is because one of those contingencies is no longer a contingency. So that's the difference between then and now.
You would characterize it as they are for real available now and they weren't fully back then.
Right, that's why there were contingencies that was written in the term sheet.
Okay.
And council actually knows which one got relieved.
So can you tell me more, if this is hinging on the availability of parking, how you believe that influences the value?
Well, in a broad sense, when you look at the Martin appraisal, it's fundamentally flawed under an HBU analysis, highest and best use, by making a determination incorrectly. A objectively evidence-based answer would be, of course there's parking available. Just look down the road, there's parking available for a hotel. And the Martin appraisal made that bold assertion and then switched from actually using comparables. And our appraisal will talk about this, hotel comparables, to actually discussing mixed commercial use, which as a footnote is interesting because there's no discussion as to what parking would be available for mixed commercial use. So the bold statement is there's no parking available for a hotel without any analysis whatsoever, any market analysis. So the second point to this, aside from the fatal flaw of there's no parking available, is the idea that there are absolutely no hotel comparables. And that is directly adverse to 100 years, without overstating it, to highest and best use law in the United States and in Vermont. So the idea is, what's the highest and best use? And he actually does, the Martin appraiser does actually break down 4 prongs. This is involved law. It's logical, it's straightforward. And he said yes to all the 4 prongs. but oh no, there's no parking, therefore I'm not going to use any hotel comparables. So it's fundamentally flawed, just to bookend this point, on no parking available. And then two, without doing any analysis whatsoever, that for a hotel that was actually, had a hotel on the site, was a development agreement that actually was planning on a hotel, that does no market analysis whatsoever as to whether or not that could be the highest and best use. But he does cite the law correctly, and he does say that these are the four prongs that do fit, but he just, for whatever reason, by design, decided, I'm not going to do this analysis, where our appraiser, who's got decades of experience within a large company, did just that analysis. And maybe what we'll do is we can get Brian, managing director of HVS, on Zoom, and he can actually discuss this, and maybe you have questions to him. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, he is with us on Zoom, and I actually would like to hear how he came to the value that is asserted here.
Sure.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can everybody hear and see me okay?
Yeah, welcome.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to turn on my sharing and send the request to share my appraisal. I don't know if somebody has to approve of that on that end.
Yeah, you should be all set, Brian. Go for it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. Just bear with me as I pick out which document it is. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, it should be the appraisal, I hope, and nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, before I go into the appraisal, I'm just gonna introduce myself and kind of briefly discuss who I am and what my firm does. My name is Brian Bisma, as I mentioned. I'm managing director for HVS in the Boston area, Burlington, Massachusetts, for that matter. And I work for HVS, which is a global hospitality and consulting and valuation firm. We're the only global consulting firm that focuses solely in the hospitality space. We offer, a wide variety of services from hotel brokerage. Consulting and valuation is the division I'm in, which provides consulting work, appraisals, market studies, for existing assets and proposed assets, hotel site valuations, economic feasibility studies, etc. We also provide asset management under the HVS umbrella. We do design, architect, brokerage, etc. So we kind of really offer a variety of services throughout the hospitality space. And my focus, as I mentioned, is the consulting and valuation, meaning the appraisals, the feasibility studies, etc. Globally, we have 50 offices comprising approximately 300 professionals throughout the globe. And we were established in 1980, so that makes us 40 years old, or 45 years old. I can't do math right now, but anyways, our founder, Steve Rushmore, he literally wrote the book on how to do hotel valuations, studies, site valuations, etc. And he's published 5 publications for the Appraisal Institute and 2 seminars for the Appraisal Institute. For those not familiar with the Appraisal Institute, it's probably the most recognized institute for professional appraisal practice in the U.S. I'm with the Appraisal Institute. I'm for sure certain that Martin is as well, but it's the most recognized institute in the U.S. So my founder wrote publications for them and taught seminars for them, and the methodology has been widely accepted, by this institute and our peers, our competitors. It's been accepted by federal banks, local, national banks, developers, etc. They all recognize this as the, correct methodology to do hotel appraisals and studies. So as you can imagine, being 45 years in the business, our firm has amassed quite a huge database, very extensive, full of contacts, confirmed data, such as cap rates, occupancy, and average rates, sales, transaction metrics. We have pretty much all that data in our system, comprising from all different markets globally, and of course in the U.S. That's where our major presence is. So our methodology, it's true and tested. It's withheld this test of time rather. And by extension, like I mentioned, I practice the Rushmore approach, as it's called. And my specialty is in the consulting and valuation, and my practice is throughout New England. I personally have done well over 1,000 appraisals nationwide, but more specifically, more recent as in the past 15 years, my practice has been in the New England area. I've been with HVS since 2006. So most of my practice has been in New England. I've done, I think, probably 300. I looked at my stats. Our firm has done rather about 500 plus appraisal assignments and studies throughout Vermont, many in Chittenden County, of course. And I personally have done well over 100 studies and appraisals in the state of Vermont, many of which are in Chittenden County as well. So that's a little bit about me. I've seen every type of hotel class, from a limited service, kind of rundown highway econo lodge in the middle of nowhere in Indiana to, one of the most exquisite scaled resorts on the Cape or in Miami Beach. So I've kind of really gained a lot of knowledge, and in doing so, it's very easy for me to identify what works for a hotel site, what is not a hotel site, what's a great hotel site to, a C- hotel site. But overall, it gives me the ability to really determine if a site is feasible for a hotel development. And so that's kind of my background. For the purposes of this appraisal assignment, I want to emphasize and disclose that I've been engaged by Mr. Dubroff, the property owner, to do an appraisal. An appraisal, by definition, is an unbiased opinion. It's my professional opinion on what the site is worth. I was compensated with a flat fee. I have no interest in the property whatsoever. I don't really care if the project comes to fruition. I mean, that's great if it does, but either at the end of the day, I get paid my flat rate and there's no extra compensation for me. So it's great for Adam, but to me, it really doesn't matter. I'm just glad that he paid his invoice. That's all that for the flat fee. That's all that matters to me. So I just wanted to disclose that and reemphasize that is how I was engaged. And with that, let me get into the appraisal. And please, everybody, council members specifically, if you have any questions or if I'm going too fast or if you need clarification on anything, please do interrupt. I've been married for 13 years. Today is actually my 13-year anniversary, so I'm used to being interrupted. But please, in all seriousness, if you do have any questions or need any clarification, please do interject. So this is obviously the cover letter of my appraisal. Mr. Dubroff, that's me, my office address where I'm at now. This is just discloses that it was done in accordance to professional practice and regulations. And I'm going to be moving fairly quickly through some of this so I can go really to the crux of the appraisal and the analysis. But again, if there's any, if you want me to stop or explain anything, please do so. So that was just the table of contents. These are my salient data and conclusions. The property is 4 Winooski Way. The inspection date is January 29th, 2024. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the site by now. It's 0.18 acres. The zoning is downtown core, flood zone X. This is my my concluded value, my appraisal opinion. But we'll kind of scroll through this quickly here. This shows the history of the subject, the ownership, I want to really kind of get down to the meat and potatoes of the appraisal because I know time is limited. Pictures of the site, more pretty pictures of the site, some beautiful maps. This,
Can I,
oh,
a-
sorry.
can I ask
Yeah.
real quick, you were
Sure.
on site to take these pictures?
I was,
Observe
yes.
it? Okay.
Yes, yeah, I was. Thank you. Yeah, and this is the zoning, downtown core. This lists out some of the allowed uses. And my overall assessment is that it's an excellent site. Visibility is great, accessibility, etc. This is the market area section, just basically shows economic development or eco dev stats, for the market, for the area, employment figures, some more radial stats right there, household income, etc. Excuse me, unemployment stats. This basically shows that Chittenden County, the MSA and the state are all, below in terms of unemployment from the U.S. national stats, which bodes well, obviously, for the area. Speaks to the strength, some major employers, airport stats for the Burlington Airport, just some kind of national GDP stats. So this is kind of really the crux of the analysis that I'm getting into. And again, please stop me if if you have any questions. So this is kind of the national trends, where the US stands and all these, excuse me, so I'll kind of adjust. Okay, I'm just gonna go through this. This is the stats, national stats, and for different regions of the US, different classes of hotels. You have your luxury, upper upscale, down to economy. This is kind of what the occupancy average rate and RevPAR are for these specific markets. For those who are unfamiliar with these terms, occupancy basically means how much percentage of the hotel inventory is being occupied on an annual basis. So here for the US in 2019, for instance, 66% of the hotel room nights available were occupied in 2019. Average rate is basically kind of what it implies. What's the average rate of that hotel room night that's being occupied? So on average in 2019, for instance, the average room night for a hotel in the US was $131. And RevPAR, it stands for revenue per available room. That basically is a function of both average rate and occupancy. If you do the math and you multiply 66% by 131, you get about $87 right here. So that's kind of a function. This is a really good indicator to kind of the overall health of the market or of the specific market that you're looking at, because it really reflects both of these metrics. So, and this is kind of, yeah,
You may not be aware because you're from the Boston area, but Vermont
Sure.
relies heavily on tourism from Canada, and we've had
Absolutely.
a 45% downturn. Did you utilize
Sure.
that in calculating your information on rates?
Sure. That was subsequent to the data evaluation, though, my understanding. That is subsequent to kind of when we were engaged to do this study.
Yeah, this was in January.
Okay, I was just wondering if
Outside.
you.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm certainly well
Talking
aware of
about
that, yeah.
vacancy rates.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
About current
No,
vacancy rates.
yeah, sure, I'll be remiss not to address that, but yeah, that, like I said, that's outside of the data valuation subsequent to this, but, again, at the same token, and I mean, it's kind of unfortunate what happened with Canada and our relationship, but, it eventually will rebound. I'm pretty confident in that.
Hopefully. We'll
It's
see.
just kind of
We'll
like,
see what the administration keeps doing.
yeah, I mean, and investors, what we do is we reflect what investors, we replicate what investors are looking at in the market and what their sentiment is. And, I mean, again, this is kind of outside of this scope, but just for your future or for your knowledge, in my talks with a lot of hoteliers, of course, they're saying it's an unfortunate event, but, they're pretty confident that it is a short-term kind of thing within the next couple years or so. It was just like COVID, that was the worst downturn we've ever seen, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. We didn't know if there was going to be a rebound, especially with the group business. But lo and behold, as you'll see and hear in a bit, the numbers really, really bounce back. I mean, even here in the U.S., prior to COVID, I mean, we've never seen stats like this in 2020. But subsequent to COVID, we've never seen numbers like this either. We've reached all-time highs in terms of RevPAR and just general lodging metrics. So, in short, the Canada incident is, like I said, subsequent to this data valuation. But in all my appraisal practice, we do, of course, take that into consideration, and we replicate what the investment outlook is and what the sentiment is for real world, investors. That's kind of how we do our methodology. But I'll just kind of move further here. This is kind of the recent months of December 2023. It's just 1 month of data, so it's not too significant. This is kind of just more representative in bar or chart format, kind of what was presented previously. This is kind of the demand in terms of the U.S. lodging industry. Again, this is taken from the previous pages. What I really want to focus on here is this page, figure 5-6 on 34. This is a very interesting table. It really, really highlights kind of the strength of the market here in Burlington/Winooski. Basically, this data is actual data. It's not estimates. It's not, approximations. It's actual data from an agency called Smith Travel Research. Smith Travel Research, or STR as it's abbreviated, is the foremost data reporting agency in the hospitality industry. Basically, all major brands are required to participate to this agency. And what they do is they report their data of occupancy and average rate for their specific hotels to this agency. And basically, these numbers here are an aggregate of all these hotels, 20 hotels, selected hotels. And these hotels, I chose these hotels because they reflect a really good snapshot or representation of the inventory in the market. They go from upper mid-scale hotels, as you can see, comprises a vast majority of this competitive set, it's called, of 20 hotels. There's some upscale hotels, some mid-scale hotels, upper mid-scale, sorry, I already mentioned that, but this is kind of the gamut of hotels that's included in this data. And I didn't include, arguably one of the best hotels, Hotel Vermont, in here because even though this set is so significant, it could potentially skew the data a little bit, but again, it's not, I didn't include that, so it's not reflected here. But this is the actual occupancy, actual average rate, and actual RevPAR for this entire set, which effectively represents the market. So as you can see, in 2019, for instance, that was pretty much the peak prior to COVID. We have occupancy for this entire set of 74%, average rate about $146, which equates to a RevPAR of $108. Of course, everything goes downhill with COVID. This isn't a surprise. Virtually every market in the U.S. really kind of absolutely tanked in 2020. However, emerging out of COVID, the year, exactly the year after, it rebounds significantly to $103. It's only $1 shy of, about $1 shy of 2018, which is a pretty strong year as well. And then in 2022, you'll note that it just eclipses, the prior year peak of $108 seen in 2019. So we have a RevPAR of 100, or sorry, a RevPAR of 142 in 2022, and that just keeps going up to 149. And again, I have to, it does surprise me, but at the same time, it doesn't, that how strong of a market this is. It really gained a lot of exposure after COVID. So you see that, and a lot of that business has still retained, a few years after. It's still pretty strong, very strong, I should emphasize. And if you notice that there's a lot of hotel supply that's actually come to market as well. The majority of these are from, the last century. It kind of sounds weird that I say it's last century, but it's in the vintage of 1960 about and to like 1990s. But a lot of these are older hotels. They've been renovated, sure, but nonetheless, that doesn't negate the fact that they're, older hotels, but still, as an aggregate, the set is getting $149, which is pretty phenomenal. For comparison, I'll show you to kind of how that stacks up against other markets in the US. This is just, again, a summation in bar format, kind of all the data presented here in the previous page. And this kind of shows how of a percentage these years correspond to 2019. I mean, you can see that these percentages really eclipse 2019 levels. But so as I mentioned before, that market set of 20 hotels throughout the Burlington area achieved a RevPAR of $149 in 2023. So if you look at this data, it's amazing that, from the top 25 markets in the US, Burlington, Vermont eclipses the average of the top 25 markets, which is $127. For a specific market to market comparison, it's $2 higher than San Francisco. It sounds crazy to think that, but this is actual data that's reported from Smith Travel. There's a lot. I mean, I think if I was counting them before earlier today, I think there's only like 8 or so markets that are higher than the RevPAR of Burlington, Vermont, which is pretty impressive. So that's kind of that over there. Historical marks, let me see. Okay, so this gets into kind of the basis of formation of how I formulated the revenue forecast for the potential hotel at 4 Winooski Way. So taking all that market data that I presented previously, we're showing an average rate. We're positioning, we're saying if the hotel were open, what sort of rate could be reasonably expected for this hotel? And what sort of occupancy would be reasonable for this hotel to achieve? Taking into consideration factors such as visibility, location, traffic count, etc. What's a pretty reasonable, estimate on what it could achieve for occupancy on a stabilized basis and also on an average rate basis. So we position it through penetration, which basically it's a pretty simple concept. Basically, we're saying that if a hotel is achieving 100% penetration, then it's achieving at market. If it's achieving, below 100%, say 95% penetration, then it's below market. And of course, if it's achieving, say, 105% penetration, it's achieving above market. So here, I'm just taking those numbers that I presented previously, and I'm positioning it a bit shy of 100% penetration for average rate, which is pretty conservative in my opinion, but for the purpose of this valuation, I opted to go with that. And the stabilized occupancy of 74%, which as we saw from the market, if you look back here, was at 78% with an average rate of $192. So basically, we're positioning it really at a conservative level, just given the scope of the project planned, given the location, et cetera. And ultimately, the RevPAR penetration is at 97%, which again is below market. You know, it really should probably, in theory, be above 100%, just given the scope that was planned for this project. You know, Adam had mentioned to me that Hilton had approved this hotel project, which again speaks volumes of the site's desirability. Hilton and Marriott are arguably the two premier brands in the world. And they don't just give out franchises if they don't feel that it's going to be, you know, representation or a good representation of their portfolio. You know, if it's a site that's not desirable, they won't do the deal. So the fact that Hilton also vouched and gave, you know, franchise to Adam speaks volumes and just kind of really solidifies my thinking that the hotel is viable and more than feasible. These numbers alone show that as well. You know, I'll show you a little bit further down here what this translates, what those forecasted occupancy and average rate translate into in terms of rooms revenue, overall rooms revenue. So we're forecasting 5.2 million in rooms revenue for the first year, 5.6 in the second, 5.8, etc. And realize again that this is below market, below factual, you know, data. That's kind of where I'm positioning this hotel. And the reason we come up with this revenue forecast, oh, sure, sorry, I'll get into that in a bit here, but this is the HBU section. You know, similar to every appraisal we do, we go through the checklist of these four components. Is the site, is a hotel legally permissible? Well, yes, it certainly is. It's zoned for hotel. And that's one of the uses that's allowed. Is it physically possible? It certainly is. You know, I mean, 0.18 acres may seem small, but it actually works pretty well. I've worked with sites that are certainly smaller that have been feasible projects that came to fruition. Adam also showed me some site plans that support that hotel development is allowed or is doable and physically feasible here. Financially feasible. Would it, you know, produce a net return? Well, certainly. If you go back to the numbers that I laid out here, you know, these numbers certainly support a hotel development. And again, this is conservative in my opinion. Is it maximally productive? Excuse me, would it, you know, produce the highest return? Based on my, you know, 19 plus years of doing this, hotel use is almost always yields the most value in terms of the site valuation. So absolutely here, you know, if a mixed use or multifamily is feasible here, if it yields a higher value than I'm coming up with, then great, you know, but I doubt it would. I highly doubt it would because typically a hotel use is the most maximally productive use. However, you know, it needs to be an ideal site. It needs to have great visibility, great or excellent visibility, excellent location, excellent access, etc. So ultimately, going through this checklist, I concluded that hotel use is certainly the HBU for the land. And in terms of approaches to kind of how I'm valuing the land, this is just a summary of the different approaches. For land use, it's ultimately income cap via the ground lease approach is the methodology that's widely accepted and utilized by hotel appraisals throughout the nation, not just HVS, but also my competitors. They use this ground lease approach, even banks in their underwriting and developers utilize this approach. It's nothing revolutionary. We developed it, as I mentioned, 45 years ago, this methodology. Sales comparison approach. It's another methodology for valuation, which I adopt as well, as I'll go into here shortly. And the cost approach, given that this is not a valuation of an existing hotel or a hotel development per se, we're just valuing the land here. This really isn't applicable. But those are the approaches to value that I'm using. And this is another, major piece of the appraisal, obviously, is the ground rent. So taking that 5.2 million that I showed previously as a basis for our calculation of land valuation and annual rent, the 5.2 rooms revenue is multiplied by a rental percentage of 3%. And industry standard, it's usually between 2 to 5, but I've seen estimates or I've seen percentages as high as 15 or more. It really depends on the desirability of the site. I've consulted with many, peers from competitors as well, and they actually utilize between 3 to 4%. So that's kind of pretty typical here. The founder of HVS, Steve Rushmore, he actually published a recent publication, just as a refresher to some of his clients that, what kind of is a reasonable rental rate for land for rent for such a property. And his estimation was, again, it's 3 to 5% was kind of his figure. And this publication was just a couple months ago. Pretty coincidental that it lines up with this appraisal. But he just reiterates the fact that, industry standard is about 3 to 5%. And this has been confirmed with numerous brokers that I've spoken to specific to the Burlington market. I've actually worked on a project as well, as recent as I think 2 years ago in the Burlington area for a hotel that's on ground lease land. And going back to the analysis, it's 5% as the ground lease rate. So this is a market derived rental rate. So as you can see here, I just multiply it by the income stream of 5.2 million, times it by 3%. Pretty straightforward math. You get an annual rental rate of 156,000. And taking it one step further, for valuation of the land, you utilize a cap rate. The cap rate is basically the figure you divide into, your income stream of 156. And the cap rates are typically between 6 to 8%. That's again, it's the desirability of the site. It can go down, as low as 2%. It can go up to 12%. It really depends on the desirability of the site, and all the factors attributable to the site, which, as I mentioned previously, is really, the site has all the visibility and accessibility attributes that, really identify it as an ideal site for development. And the lodging metrics here in the market certainly are attractive as well. So 6% cap rate is what I chose. And usually it's about 200 or so basis points. I don't want to get further, but lower than a hotel. Hotel nowadays is about 8%. So that's kind of further supporting the 6% cap rate that I chose. And 156,000 divided by 6%, you get 2.6 million, which is my conclusion of value for the subject site. And I'll show you some further data. Here I get into some land sales data. This is a pretty important figure as well. It contains a lot of good info here. Basically, it's a selection of 5 sites that reflect accurate data, reliable data. These aren't estimates. These are all based on interviews. They're based on our database that we have of confirmed data. They're based on interviews with developers, brand representatives, et cetera, investors. And it utilizes industry derived ratios. These are actual figures right here. And arguably one of the most comparable is obviously the Netty site, which is a stone's throw away from our subject site here. This data, where is it? Right here. Let me zoom in. Of 30 to 35 million has actually been increased since then. It's more like in the tune of 43 million per their latest news piece on their website. So this development has actually gone up more, 43 million. And land basis really, it represents about, it should reflect about 8 to 15% of your total project costs. That's kind of the sweet spot and the accepted industry average. So for instance, if your development was, call it, an even 100 million, then 8 or 10%, for instance, which is 10 million. So that would be kind of what your site would be worth. And that these are industry derived ratios here. These are actual costs based on collected data. I wanted to bring your attention to this site here in particular, the 266 College Street. It was being developed originally by Geary Hotels, who I have a really good professional rapport with. I speak to them pretty much every month. I connected with one of the principals as recent as just last Friday on a project and get some more insight as well on this sale and confirm some insight that I had. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it correctly. But ultimately, they sold this project, or this site rather, which was a YMCA site in Burlington. They purchased this for 4.5 million, which represents rather $32,000 per key, so per room. That means of the entire development costs, the land cost was about $32,000 per guest room. That's what this means right here, this column. And you can see these numbers vary, of course, from, this one, of course, is pretty high. This is in the City Place development of downtown Burlington. So, of course, this is going to command quite a premium over the other comps. But anyways, getting back to this sale, they purchased this at 4.5 and then they sold it. I just want to make sure I got the price right. I listed out here. They sold it for 5.2 million to another developer who was interested in a hotel site. And the reason why they sold it, it wasn't because they had second thoughts or second guesses on the Burlington market, but it's in fact not to focus on another hotel development, but on another 2 hotel developments. So they sold this so they could focus more on City Place here, which is going to be an upscale hotel. And also outside of this list, actually, there should be another project it's a confidential project, or at the time it was confidential, but it should be added to this list. It's an AC hotel by Marriott, which is maybe many of you know as a very upscale hotel by Marriott. So that's arguably superior in caliber to this planned hotel here. So that was kind of the main reason why they sold it, not because, excuse me, they had some second thoughts on the market, but they actually want to spend their resources and energy on 2 projects in the area. And also outside of that, was subsequent to the date of this appraisal, this same group, Geary Hotels, which I want to add is they're a pretty significant hotelier in New England. They own 50 plus properties throughout the region, so they're a major player in the market. They have a stake in the market, a big stake in the market. They see the vision. They get what's going on. They're not, a fly by night type of company, but sorry, I was going to say this same company recently purchased the Residence Inn in Colchester, just outside of Burlington, of course, for a price of 265,000, which is per room, I should say. Sorry, not 265 total, but 265,000 per room. which I believe translates to about 30 million. And this is, a Residence Inn by Marriott hotel. It's a great hotel, great brand, of course, but doesn't have the same visibility as the site that Mr. Dubroff has here in Winooski, and it traded for some pretty big bucks. It was previously owned by a private equity group in the Boston area as well, which just further shows that there's a lot of investment activity and interest that's still strong in the Burlington area. But if you do the math for the hotel that I referenced that they purchased, Geary Management, 30,000 per room, 300, it comes out to about 300,000 per room after they put in some improvements that are necessary by the brand. So overall, the transaction is going to be about 300,000 per room. And on a land basis, if you take this ratio of 10%, that land basis then becomes 30,000 per guest room for the in terms of land value for the Colchester Residence Inn. Relative to ours, we have a far superior site, I would say, that many would agree. So I think my basis is pretty reasonable for valuation. Regarding the Nettie site, again, the land basis here would translate based on project costs. It would translate to about $45,000, 43,000 per room, give or take. I mean, as I mentioned, this investment value or this project value has gone up significantly to 43,000 per their official website, which translates to a land basis of about 40 or so thousand per room. And this is a development, arguably inferior to the subject site here at 4 Winooski Falls Way. I mean, you have far less, if any, far less visibility, far less exposure. It's tucked away. So this really is arguably one of the best comps as well. And that right there is it's pretty rare that we get comps this good, and then this close. I mean, it's really hard, in my practice to say that, oh yeah, I had no troubles finding some land comps. I mean, this right here is one of the best, and this one as well is pretty solid.
Brian, thank you
Yeah.
for walking us through this. I think
Yeah.
really what you've illustrated here, to be clear, is that your appraisal is based on the income of the proposed hotel that would exist in the future.
The income, yes, and also based on some comparable trades that have occurred in the market.
Well, the question I have for the team here is that
Sure.
the just compensation amount is based on the current state of the parcel. And this appraisal that you have provided says it is based on the assumption that the described improvements have been completed. So what are you proposing the
Sure.
value is then?
Sure. So for any hotel valuation, you need to base it on the potential of the land, which is exactly what I'm doing here. We're basically forecasting it in my market analysis here. What would a reasonable forecasted revenue be? And as I hopefully illustrated and presented, that these numbers are pretty conservative, if anything. That's really the meat and potatoes of how investors, look at this. That's market derived. This is how the market would value this.
Brian, I understand how you're coming to your appraisal. I'm asking the
Sure.
team here.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
believe that this appraisal fits the just compensation process, which is to be based on the current status of the parcel.
So that assumption would be just incorrect under the law. Basically, under highest and best use, you're looking at what the maximally productive use would be for the land if it was used that way. So if you look in any number of circumstances, farmland would be taken. It's not viewed as farmland for compensation purposes. It's viewed as potential subdivisions for residential uses. There's no subdivision happening, there's no residences being constructed, but the landowner who is being impacted is given the benefit of the value of the highest use. And so that's what Brian's talking about here. There's no hotel there, but at its highest possible use under the law, what's economically feasible, maximal productivity, the 4 factors he discussed, it has to be treated as a hotel site, and that's where you get the comps from. And that's where the market appraisal falls short, because he goes through the 4 factors, he says, yep, hotel meets all of them, and then he talks about parking and his own impressions of the market, and decides that he's going to value it comp to other mixed-use commercial properties. And just based on the proper way to do this, and I think Brian was probably going to start wrapping up on this point in a moment, that's the mistake here, is that you can't value this property as a mixed-use commercial property because every factor is met to value it as a hotel.
And if I could interject and add something on top of that, there's an appraisal principle that's called consistent use, meaning that the appraisal of a site is to be valued at the site's highest and best use, regardless of the current use of the property. This is an official appraisal principle that all appraisers really should comply to, because that's pretty much in our ethics, in our code of regulations, that is the way a site is valued at its highest and best use, regardless of the current use of the property.
But, sorry.
This has been in literature.
Clarifying-
If I can add a little context to understand the law.
Sorry, I was asking a question really quick. So just to clarify with with us as a council deliberating body, with both of these appraisals, what we are looking at, as Mayor, you just pointed out, is the just compensation for the current state of the parcel. We're not really necessarily getting into or really get the highest best use, or we are a little bit when thinking about the
My understanding is we're looking at the current state of the parcel with no improvements on it. Highest and best use would indicate what it could be sold for,
right.
but we're talking about fair market value for someone buying this parcel that does not have a hotel on it.
Thank you.
Okay, so your question was within the framework of what I was going to describe, and this is where the legal issue comes smashing into the concept that you're grappling with. And if I can add some context, some sort of policy behind hundreds of years of laws related behind a government body taking someone's property. The balance is, because of the inequities, right? Think about it. In the United States, government can actually take private property. So because of that, there are protections. And the protection is the HBU, highest and best use. It is not, what does it look right now? And I think Jake just talked a little bit about that. If you were going to decide to take farmland from a farmer, but it was zoned for 5,000 units, you couldn't say as a government agency, whether or not it was a state, federal government, or a municipality, you couldn't say to the owner, oh, this is just farmland. You've got a few cows here, you're doing your business. That's not the law. And that's the difficulty, going back to my original point, is that courts are suited to actually analyze this. You're going to naturally grapple with it, with anyone grapple with this, outside of somebody who's actually studied this area of the law. Maybe you'll get some help from your counsel. I hope you do, because this is the protection that's structured within the Constitution when a government agency, be it whatever it is, takes somebody's property. It has to be an HBU. And Martin did that analysis. He just didn't follow through with it. In other words, take that back. He didn't do the analysis. He stated what the law was and then failed to do the analysis. Brian here is actually doing the analysis. And you may get lost in the numbers, anyone would. I did the first time. But when you actually look at the law and look at the protections for citizens in our country, this is what needs to be done. The HBU needs to be done. And the only appraisal before you right now that actually did that is HVS. It's a lot of acronyms here. Brian's. Martin did not do that. And that has to be rejected because that's not the law. Now, I suppose you could do what you're going to do and it's going to get punted to a superior court. But you have an opportunity here to look at it and look at it appropriately under the law, study it, ask ChatGPT, and actually take a look at the issue and see that this is not anything other than what is done throughout the United States for the longest time. This is it sounds esoteric when the first time you look at it, but it is an evolved area of the law. And I'll sum this all up because it's designed to protect the citizen from a government taking. So you can't just say, in summary, you're a farmer with 25 acres over here. What is a farm? No. You have to look at the 4 prongs. Both appraisals did the 4 prongs. Martin stopped short. Maybe he was told to do it that way. No parking, can't do it, not going to look at it. That's just wrong, fatally wrong. Is this helpful at all to you? You don't have to agree with what I'm saying, but are you starting to understand the concept?
I understand the argument.
Oh, no, this is not an argument. This is the law. This is not me making this. When you dig into it, and look at what it is that this council has to do, you've got to follow the law. It's not an argument here. This is black and white law. And then the question is, what's before you that actually applies highest and best use law? And there's only one appraisal that does it. That's Brian's.
And I just want to add, just for your reference, you're talking about the property doesn't have a hotel on it. The YMCA building in City Place, there are no hotels there. And you saw the numbers that people paid for that. And that's what's going on in the hospitality industry in Chittenden County, right here.
Those also weren't empty land. They had significant site improvements.
No, actually, the YMCA building, they had to knock down an additional cost. It wasn't just buying the land, and they have parking issues there as well.
Just because it is a public hearing and the public isn't aware of everything, this is a temporary condemnation until 2030. So it's not a full, I think when people hear like taking your farm, they may think you're never getting it back. So I just want to make sure, that the public knows that.
Well, I think it's important. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, we all wind up in the same place at some point.
Sure.
And when you start taking someone's property for a month, think of your home. I would you could take it for a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Make sure
Yeah.
people are aware that it's not a permanent seizure.
Correct. And part of the reason that it is temporary is to ensure the access of emergency vehicles don't get cut off. So that's part of the reason why it's coming before the council, is for our local emergency services.
Any other questions?
Any questions from members of the public? If you're on Zoom, you can use the chat or raise hand feature. Okay. No further questions from council? Christian, could you come up? Oh, yes. Brian, you don't need to screen share any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you please talk to us about the difference in, what they're saying about highest and best use versus the just compensation amount being based on current parcel conditions.
Right. So when you look at we're looking at, let me just pull up the exact statute. I'm sorry. Let me show you my. So, this is outlined in the memo that I had submitted about 3 weeks ago to the city council. The issue of compensation is outlined in 24 VSA 2810C. So I'm just going to pull that up so I can read the exact language.
I'm sorry, for the record, can you
Yeah.
just state who you are?
Yeah, my name's Christian Shorba, and I'm an attorney at Downs, Racklin, Martin, representing the city of Winooski in this matter. So the question is really the language used in the statute is not about the highest or best use. That language does not appear in the statute. What does appear is the damages sustained by the interested persons. And that's both at this city council level as well as at the Superior Court level if this is appealed. And so looking at that, and from what I can tell from the case law, is that that is based on the existing infrastructure, use, amenities, etc., at the property right now, not based on hypothetical in the future. So highest and best use is not a term that is in the statute. I don't know if that answers the question.
Can I color that out a little bit? Highest and best use is used in both of the appraisals. And the issue here is that both appraisals determined that the highest and best use of the property could be a hotel, meeting all the 4 factors, except one appraisal decided not to consider hotels as comparable properties to come up with a valuation. And that's a flaw. That's the issue here in terms of using 2 pieces of expert reports, appraisers, to decide what a property is worth. You have one that followed through with the process under all appraisal standards, and one who diverted because of parking or conversations with other developers.
But you don't disagree with the statute language?
I don't think the statute is the entirely relevant component of what the analysis should be now or what it will be in the future. It's the US Constitution that's really in play here.
I think it's a very simplified analysis you're hearing from your counsel, no disrespect meant, because you're misapplying constitutionally protected rights. And what Jake was just saying is that both appraisers use the highest and best use as the analysis. One just stopped doing the actual follow. So not only is counsel advising something that's, you read the statute, misapplying the actual law for the reasons I explained. Again, check out your ChatGPT. It says no one's making this up. This is pretty straightforward. But put that as away. Different disagreement between 2 attorneys. The appraisers actually looked at HBU. One just decided because they were directed or otherwise didn't want to look at evidence-based that I'm not going to take a look at a hotel because there's no parking. But that's just wrong. We know that. That is wrong by the documents. So the HBU, as applied by Brian, is actually the application of the appropriate law here. And I would ask for you to get a memo from your legal counsel on this issue, actually detailing how HBU is applied in these situations. Because I think it'll be important, because what's going to happen is if somehow you make a conclusion or a decision that, oh, this is just a piece of land here, let's leave it at that. Aside from the $1.6 million opening offer from V-Trans, and aside from the fact that Adam paid 11 years ago $600,000 and put another $500,000 or more into permitting and architectural fees. If you make that determination that we're just going to look at this land so it's possibly a hot dog stand, well, that's only more litigation and more cost to the city that ultimately is going to wind up actually at some place, whether or not Superior Court or in Montpelier at the Vermont Supreme Court, applying what is otherwise crystal clear law. So again, I'll sum this all up. Ask your counsel to give you an actual legal opinion on this issue. On the application of the Constitution, you haven't already had it, and this statute, whatever that means, and see really what is supposed to be done here, and then compare it to the two appraisals.
What I would recommend is that, the exceptions to the Vermont open meeting law specifically contemplate going into executive session for legal advice. And I'd be happy to give more advice in executive session. What I would suggest is, when we're coming down to issues that really only experts and qualified people can attest to, and that's, the valuation of this property, I believe that we have someone from V-Trans on Zoom right now who may be able to shed light on these two different reports. And, that's just sticking with entering testimony into the record, into evidence, rather than giving legal advice and analysis, which can occur in executive session. So that would be Rosa Benoit, if she is available.
We can bring her over. Rosa, can you hear us? Oh. Rosa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't seem to turn my camera on, but I am here.
Okay.
Well, Rosa, I think the city council is wondering if you could shed light on the two different methodologies taken by these appraisers and your thoughts on each approach, and what your qualifications are to opine about these two different approaches.
Sure. My name is Rosa Benoit. I am the right-of-way appraiser chief for the Agency for Transportation. I have been an appraiser for 22 years, and I've been working as a right-of-way appraiser for the agency since 2007. I became the right-of-way appraiser chief in 2018, and the work I do for the agency is specifically for federal aid projects and eminent domain. And I guess I would start by saying that the Luke Martin appraisal is based on the value of the property as it exists now, which is an appropriate means of valuing a property when you are looking at just compensation. Just compensation is the amount of loss for which a property owner is compensated when his or her property is acquired. So the value of the property, the effective date of value is the date of the acquisition or as close to the acquisition as possible, which would be the current date. It doesn't, eminent domain does not look at prospective values, something in the future that's based on an improvement that hasn't been built and hotel rooms that don't exist at the time of the acquisition. Let's see, as far as highest and best use, Luke did consider hotel in the highest and best use. The effective date of report is October 3rd, 2023. And he did consider what was in effect at that time. He did talk about the fact that hotel properties require significant parking. And he also said there's significant risk associated with hotel operation. And he did analyze, would a hotel be appropriate here? And he concluded that it is more likely that a buyer would acquire the site for mixed-use commercial property. And those are the comparable sales that he used based on the highest and best use of its potential. Looking at current data, current market demands, what is in demand right now, and that's the basis of that, his valuation.
Any questions from council for Rosa?
Thank you.
Okay.
I do have some questions, but I do want to interpose one objection. I'm not so sure, maybe it's my hearing. I had a real tough time hearing what she was saying.
Yeah, the audio quality wasn't fantastic, but
No, it's fundamentally, but Rosa, can you hear me? This is Russell Barr. I'm here on behalf of Adam Dubroff.
Yes, I can hear you.
Do you recall? Okay, let me go back for a moment. You recall getting an email being copied by Robert Kleinfelter on July 27, 2023? And that email, just to give you context, if someone hasn't shared with you, is Exhibit E to our filing on June 25th, 2025. Did you get a chance to take a look at that submission, including that Exhibit E in the email that I just referenced, Rosa?
I do recall. Are you talking about the appraisal?
This is the email in which Mr. Kleinfelter asked for an appraisal to be done as soon as possible. Did you know that?
We did complete an appraisal when he requested it back in 2003, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you were familiar with the reason why the appraisal should have been done ASAP. And I'm going to read the sentence.
Russell,
Yeah.
can I ask why you're asking her these questions?
Well,
How it's relevant to our decision around necessity and just compensation?
I think what you're having is Rosa is repeating what the number one, what the appraiser Martin said, and two, was drawing conclusions as to value, and there are two documents I want to ask her. The first one is, it's basically relevant, if nothing more, than to show that somebody has biased in their analysis. And the bias is reflected in the Exhibit E document that Rosa was copying. And that's the one that says, my understanding is that the primary hurdle preventing construction of the hotel is available space in the city of Winooski parking garage. But last week, the city of Winooski secured funding to build an additional parking garage, which will likely open up the parking that the hotel needs to be able to move forward with the final steps necessary to begin construction. Me, as somebody who does this for a living, sees that as a biased approach to an owner of property. So I'm asking her about whether or not she knew that this existed and what they were trying to do, what the city was trying to do. Rosa, do you recall that?
I don't recall the email, but when we appraise a property, we look at it as is. We don't consider anything outside what actually exists. The permits, the documents, the deeds, the development agreement. We look at the facts and we gather factual data and interview market participants, and we gather the sales comps. There's no bias involved anywhere.
So there's no, so you understand in the condemnation, you follow highest and best use concept. You're familiar with that?
Yes, we do that all the time.
And
We follow
yeah.
We follow the Uniform Act, which is the Code of Federal Regulations for appraising property for
And you-
federal highways.
Yeah, Rosa, and you approved this appraisal? You approved?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, because you were the reviewing agency head to approve the appraisal of Martin's
Yes.
appraisal?
Yes,
And do you, as you sit here today and you're giving testimony, are they sworn in? No. No.
We don't
Okay.
necessarily.
You're giving for the record, so I suppose it's got the element of you're going to tell the truth. You understood that the appraisal that you approved stated parking was not available for the hotel. Is that correct?
at that time, effective date of October 3rd, 2023, yes, that was our understanding.
Okay, here's a question. Who else did you talk to in the city concerning that parking was not available as of October 2023?
I did not talk to anyone in the city.
So this was only, okay.
Luke Martin did the interview.
Okay.
Thank you,
My
Rosa.
last question to you is related to you work with a Trey Polk,
Yes,
and you saw a copy of a letter that Mr. Polk sent to Adam Dubroff on May 3rd, 2024. That's Exhibit I in our package, Rosa?
I did see that.
Yeah, and that offer was to purchase the entire parcel for $1.6 million. Is that correct?
I believe so.
So on May 3rd, 2024, your office felt in an opening offer and settlement discussions that the parcel was worth $1.6 million. Is that correct?
I'm not part of the negotiations.
Well, you got a copy. You got a copy of it.
Just recently when you submitted it.
Okay. So Mr. Polk took it upon himself to make a $1.6 million offer on a piece of property that your appraiser said was worth a quarter of?
The negotiations has the option to make offers. I can't speak for Trey. He should speak for himself.
But he speaks on behalf of the state of Vermont, does he not? That's right. I mean, he wasn't on this, he was speaking on behalf of the state of Vermont. I know it sounds like a sort of a silly question, but are you suggesting that somehow Trey Polk did not have authorization to make an offer on May 3rd, 2024 for $1.6 million?
Yes, he did, but I'm just saying I'm not part of that process.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. I would ask the council if they would like to enter executive session for attorney-client communications, or if they would like to move on to item B in the decision-making process and close the public hearing.
Yeah, I'd say let's do that.
You ready to close the public hearing? Or you want the
No.
executive session?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to move to find that, oh, how do I want to phrase this? It's not that one. Um,
Somewhere past the agenda.
I'm looking for a motion to find that confidential attorney-client.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you. Oh, we can use that one? Yeah. Okay. To enter into deliberative session pursuant 1 VSA 312E for deliberation in connection with a quasi-judicial proceeding, and into executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313 for purposes of securing a real estate purchase, and because open deliberation would place the city council at a substantial disadvantage for civil litigation receiving attorney-client communications. That's the first motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then I need a second motion to enter into executive session to discuss this matter under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1A of the Vermont statutes, inviting our city manager and attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Should we bring in John Rauscher?
Any-
Who? Who would you recommend?
I'm not sure it's necessary.
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, thank you. All right, city manager and attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we're going to enter into executive session with our city manager and attorney for attorney-client communication. We will come back out before making any actions. We have ended our deliberative session. I am also going to close the public hearing, and we're going to move on to item B for discussion approval. Decide on necessity and just compensation amount for condemnation for temporary easement for Burlington Winooski Bridge project. So we have a proposed resolution here. Pursuant to 24 VSA 2805, the mayor and city council of the city of Winooski hereby condemn a parcel of land owned by Winooski Hotel Group LLC based on municipal records, such parcel is approximately 0.18 acres in size, is located at 4 Winooski Falls Way in Winooski, Vermont, has span number 774-246-11848, and has tax parcel ID number WI004. Pursuant to such condemnation, the mayor and city council have determined that it is necessary for public use and benefit to take the subject parcel on a temporary basis for use in construction of a bridge to replace the current Burlington Winooski Bridge over the Winooski River. Such temporary basis shall last from July 14th, 2025 through July 1, 2030. The mayor and city council of the city of Winooski have further determined the compensation for such condemnation to be $188,400. The mayor and city council hereby direct and authorize the city manager to take possession of the subject parcel pursuant to the requirements of 24 VSA Section 2805, effectuate payment of the compensation amount to Winooski Hotel Group and or other appropriate party, and effectuate all documents in furtherance of such condemnation. The mayor and city council further ratify all actions previously taken in connection with such condemnation. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aurora, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Thank you all. Okay. Let Elaine get situated. Oh, great. Okay, we are up to item C for discussion and approval, the Winooski Small Business Loan Program, proposed guidelines updates. Hello, Angela.
Hello. So in January, the city council directed the finance commission to review the small business loan program and provide some recommendations for changes to the program based on some concerns about the availability of funding and the risks of the applicants that were coming before the council. The commission reviewed the program guidelines during May, June, and July meetings. The initial review highlighted the need for much clearer eligibility and evaluation criteria, and they really wanted to include criteria for risk assessment in review. They expressed support for continuing the program, but recommended much stronger parameters. Staff took that feedback and revised the guidelines and brought it back to them in June. They were very accepting of the proposals that we brought forward, but wanted to have equal weight for both the qualitative and quantitative criteria. So the aesthetics and the feel-good pieces versus the risk pieces, they wanted those to be of equal weight. And then they wanted some write-off criteria included in the guidelines as well. And then in July, staff brought back those components, which they ultimately approved and are recommending for council approval.
Thank you.
I'll add a bit of context. The initial discussion started with like, what's the value of this program? And I want to call out that the commissioners highlighted the access to capital to start a small business for folks who can't traditionally get it.
Yeah.
And that it actually has resulted in a number of like local minority owned businesses opening up. And then I would also just add, like, when it came to the criteria, it was just like a really deep, thoughtful discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with what I was here, so into your questions.
I really appreciate the work that was done here. It's not always as pleasing to see a lot of red on these documents, but in this case, it really was. I have two questions about the business plan review and the financial risk. It's nice to see those in there. I do wonder if somebody were to get a 0 on either one of those, would that, I know that you gain a total amount of scores and it can still come towards city council. However, if somebody doesn't have a business plan, it's missing or extraordinarily vague, I do wonder if something like that should come towards us, even if they score well everywhere else. With the caveat that if everything else looks good, can they be told to work on a business plan and bring that back to be reviewed?
I think I have very similar kind of concern / question around like the financial risk. I agree with the business plan review as well around thinking about, as Christine just highlighted, like the importance of this program and not wanting to put in too many things that will kind of undo or kind of detract from the purpose. I definitely agree with like getting some firmer guidelines with stuff like this, but I don't want to kind of, I do worry that some of these might still be like a little too strict for what we want. One thought that if it is felt very firmly like that those criteria should be in the section that they are, I don't know. I would like to see the minority owned weighted higher, because I again, like thinking about the purpose of this, I would want to see that then, yeah, rated with the option of 2 and 4.
Yeah, and as you said, the financial risk, I actually, if somebody has poor credit history or high debt, I think I would be totally fine with them getting a 0 if their business plan was a 4, for example.
Yeah.
If it would show that they have a plan, they know what they're doing. Having poor credit just means that when could just mean like when you were 19, you bought too many clothes, you know? So like, I
Yeah.
don't think that's as big as a deal for me.
Yeah, I think for me, like thinking about the majority of people's bad credit will often be around like medical bills, and especially thinking about our community, like one, credit scores are fake, made up in the 80s, and they're racist as hell. So like moving away from thinking about that and thinking about like maybe looking at other debts, not counting credit scores, like if there's financial risk, maybe looking at those other factors instead of just thinking about ways that the intent is still there, and we're acknowledging like the systemic issues that cause people to have poor credit or cause people not to know how to do business plans, but who still would be very valuable business members and community members.
Angela?
So business plans are actually required already as part of the Opportunities Credit Union application. So that is a component that they were already providing, but we were not evaluating as part of the scoring criteria.
Okay.
Just because somebody was to score a 0 on any of those risks does not preclude them from being recommended to council. The commission's intent here was to go into this with eyes wide open as to risk. So just scoring a 0 on any of those things doesn't mean that you can't be awarded a loan from us, but we know the risks that we're taking on knowingly.
Okay. But as you said, they already will have a business plan, so we won't have anybody getting a 0 in that subsection.
It's potential.
True. Okay. If it was bad.
Some of the business plans we have seen have been very sketchy, but there is a business plan that is required.
Are there any things, sorry, this might end up, I don't want to make more work on our end, but there are like, say, Mercy connections or stuff like that that we could, maybe Opportunities is already pointing people to folks that can help that process?
Christine.
Oh, Elaine, go ahead.
In that vein, all right, so the interim CEO of Opportunities Credit Union, Bob Lake, is actually on the call right now.
Oh, okay.
So he might be able to speak to what programs are available to help people get to the point where OCU would be providing a recommendation for or against a particular application to council.
Great.
Bob, I'm gonna ask Paul to bring you over. Bob, can you try saying something? You're muted right now. There you are.
You folks,
Welcome.
Hello.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So yes, my name is Bob Lake and I am the interim CEO of Opportunities Credit Union. And I'm also the CEO of Green Mountain Credit Union. And Opportunities Credit Union has entered into a merger agreement with Green Mountain Credit Union, and the membership vote took place on Friday. So we're days away from merging the two credit unions together, and the continuing credit union will be Green Mountain Credit Union, but we're still very committed to the city of Winooski, and we're going to maintain a branch in the city, and we have a great partnership with the city, and we definitely want to continue that commitment to the city.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So Councilor Hurd was asking if the credit union helps applicants, directs them to any supportive resources if they come in and they have a bad application, a bad business plan, they need some assistance.
So we have a Money Sense program where it's a counselor that actually sits with the individual and discusses their financial situation. So if they have bad credit, and as I heard mention that credit scores are 1980s, that is one component in our criteria to lend. So we look at, is it circumstantial? Did they have an illness? Did they have a car wreck? Did the individual have a bad divorce? We look at the entire situation. So if somebody is 30 years old and has a 499 credit score, and then you look at their credit score and see that they've never made a payment on time, that causes us to take pause and ask more questions of that individual than an individual that we would look at that would come through. They've got on-time payments, and a higher credit score. But there isn't very little emphasis placed on actual credit score and the totality of the situation. So again, we look at the whole picture, not just one component.
Someone who, for some reason, couldn't pay some student loans or some medical bills, or like you said, had some accident or some life event that was completely or mostly out of their control, not penalizing them for that.
So what we look at in that situation, let's say there is a bad credit score, and there is a reason for it. Then what we start looking at is their debt to income. And if they have a very high debt to income, again, then it causes us to take pause, because there's only, if you have a 50% debt to income or higher, or actually it's a 45% debt to income or higher, then we want to make sure that we're not going to create a worse situation in your life than if you had a lower DTI, because we take your gross income and then minus out your debts. In all reality, and this is an industry standard, and I'm not sure why it hasn't changed, but the 1980s, right? You can pretty much take off between 25 and 28% of your gross income as your take home at any one time. Some a little more, a little less, but somewhere in that neighborhood. So if you're 50% debt to income, that means that's your debts, then you're going to try to live on 25% of your income, which a lot of times isn't enough to sustain you. So,
Okay. Thank you for these details.
Yeah. A question about the eligibility for write-off consideration. Under the loan, forgiveness will not be considered if any of the following conditions are met. I think the 3 conditions there make sense. Back again to the business plan. I wonder if something could be added about a business that didn't seem to make the intent to follow their business plan. So say the business plan talks about an operation of 7 days a week, but it turns out they're only operating 3 days a week. And then obviously as a result, that's why their business failed.
Oh, like you want to add another bullet that we
Just
wouldn't
like-
consider forgiveness if they didn't follow through on their business plan?
Yeah, like they made a good
Yeah.
faith, attempt to follow the business plan that was approved by the committee and then by council.
Angela, do you think that's a viable?
So I think that's something that the council could take into consideration under C4. So if you approve loan forgiveness, as in that business no longer exists, it also is allowing you as the council to determine whether or not staff is going to pursue additional collection efforts. And if you believe that somebody didn't act in good faith in accordance with their business plan, that might be a situation where you have us pursue additional collections.
Okay.
Could we put that somewhere in the document just for future councils?
and if I may add, council, we'll be, I'll say aggressive for the purpose of this conversation, but I don't want you to think we're out there with baseball bats or anything. But so if an individual goes delinquent, we will make every effort before the charge off of that loan to collect it. If the business no longer exists and there's no assets to seize, then it is what it is. But we would be working in a coordinated effort with the staff just prior to charge off to explain everything we've done. We won't just take it for granted that we would have a loan guarantee and just take your money and apply it and walk away. So
It's good to hear.
Yeah. Definitely appreciate having this partnership, and glad to hear it's going to continue in the
Yeah.
new form.
I think the tiers that we have are, we want to be able to do a credit memo after a loan is referred, and that if we would be looking for a Winooski guarantee, that you would understand what your guarantee actually would look like, or why we're asking for it.
Are there other questions or concerns?
One thing, not to be super nitpicky, but in purpose, under, at the very top of section 1, it says provide goods and services to our citizens, just changing that to residents.
Oh, yeah.
So we use residents everywhere else in the document, so I think it might just be an oversight. And
Community
then,
members?
Right, because it's possible some, like, for example, under the Main Street program, they don't necessarily have to be a resident.
Yeah.
yeah,
Community, for our community. Provide goods and services for our community.
okay, perfect. Yeah, just thinking about folks who are like, wait, no, I can't do this. And then the final thing, circling back to, is there any chance of putting the weight for minority-owned business to be higher? I understand that the evaluation they were trying to make was for each of them to be equal. But I do think it would be helpful to have that.
Angela, I guess that would just change the total and the ranges.
Yeah.
To redo the range totals as well.
Yeah.
That is a policy decision. That's entirely up to council.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just think it might be helpful again when we're looking at that section of like business plan, financial risk, and then, yeah.
So, would someone like to make a motion to approve the Winooski Small Business Loan Program proposed guidelines update, including swapping the word citizens for community, moving minority-owned, women-owned disadvantaged business into the 0-4 criteria, and updating the total score ranges to accommodate that change?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aurora, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to D, the Winooski Small Business Loan Main Street Construction Program.
Elaine had asked me to kick this one off as well. As you know, since the start of the Main Street project, we have been hearing from the local businesses that they're experiencing significant declines in their customers and their revenues. So we have been pursuing a wide range of options to try and assist them, including the Mosaic campaign and engagement with our community partners. And as part of that effort, we have worked with Opportunities Credit Union to create a dedicated loan program for businesses negatively impacted by the construction. They have committed $40,000 of one-time funds to subsidize the interest on these loans, allowing up to $200,000 to be issued as a 0% interest loan for 5-year terms to eligible applicants. The city funds totaling $42,707.58 as of the end of June would be used to guarantee Tier 2 and Tier 3 loans under this program based on the borrower risk. The loan terms and proposed scoring criteria are outlined in the guidelines that were attached. These were primarily focused on the impact to the business and the type of business that they operate and its subjectivity to disruption based on the construction.
So if I could.
Yeah.
So I can't stress enough, in fact, I might cry, but I can't stress enough how amazing of a partnership, to Rory's words earlier, this has been with Bob and specifically, and I feel like he's bringing along the team likewise, that, you know, he went looking for money that could make a 0% loan program possible. Now, none of us can guarantee that he can find more, but he worked hard until they found that amount. And that is really what this community needs. Like, they would rather have grants, but as I can firmly say for sure, there is no such thing, unfortunately, for businesses. But so this is literally the next best thing. So appreciation to Bob for that. My main concern about this program is deciding on the maximum amount, or recommending to council what the maximum amount of a specific loan would be. We do need to cap it, as Bob reminded me, because we only have 200,000 available total for that amount of buy down that is available. So we don't want to give businesses the wrong idea of what's possible. So in that vein, I have a bit more data. We have a bit more data than we did when the packet went out. As far as we know, there are at least 45 businesses on Main Street. At least 5 don't have a public facing space on Main Street, meaning that they shouldn't be impacted by construction per se, compared to those that do have a physical space where they're interfacing with the public. So that leaves 40. 4 did tell us they were doing fine and didn't need a loan. Thank goodness, not all of them. Of the 36 remaining, we heard back from 12 who were interested in a 0% loan. I'm guessing 10 of the 36 wouldn't be interested or need a loan based on the nature of the business. And I'm not saying that to say that they might, to say that there's not that demand. It's just to give some sense of how much data you're lacking. 11 of the 12 interested have been able to name an amount by as of now, that would be useful. The range that people were interested in ranged from $1,000 to the full $200,000 available for anyone. One was interested in any amount. They actually said 0 to 200,000. Like, that's not actually a loan. So I'm just going to say 1, and they're like, okay, 1. 1 just needed 5,000. 3 were talking about 100,000 or over. 5 were between 15,000 and 30,000. One very long-standing business said they needed at least 40,000. So if every applicant were eligible for tier 1 with a maximum of 30,000, we could do 6 loans at 30,000 and 1 more at 20,000. That's obviously not necessarily how it would play out. Right. I'm just trying to give some idea of what's possible. At 40,000, we could do 5 loans at 40,000. My recommendation is to cap the loan at 40,000 because you'll have more opportunity to consider more information through the application and approval process. So in theory, that this would be meaning that it could be that, because we did this very fast. Like, once Bob said this is available, I looked at the next meetings available, and we thought it would be better to try and get as much data as we could and make it live. And Bob actually might have a different recommendation. I want you to hear what that might be. But if we cap it at 40,000 in theory, this would be an amount useful to 8 of the 11 respondents, assuming they all qualify, which they might not. However, keep in mind, again, this is not my area of expertise. We do have Bob here. So if he has other advice, I recommend you ask him.
Thank you, Elaine. And we'll echo the gratefulness for our partnership here. Bob, what do you think about Elaine's recommendation to us for $40,000 cap on these loans?
Well, it's interesting because as a banker, I'm not used to giving money away for free. So, but we were able to find these grant funds that are going to be able to assist. So I'm fine with capping it at 40. We had originally talked about a lesser amount, but I'm fine with I know that Angela and Elaine put a lot of time into this and thought, so I'm comfortable with the cap at 40. I do think we need a cap because we don't want to replace traditional financing. We just want to help these businesses that may need that little extra to get past this construction.
And then if you, when you're ready, there's actually at least one business owner online. I don't know that they're willing to make comment, but if you wanted to ask for that, as you always do, just so you know, there is one on, and another one might come on shortly.
Yeah, I'd be happy to invite public comment. If you're on Zoom, you can just use the raise hand or chat feature to let us know if you want to speak. And we'll bring Kristen over.
Kristen, you can, oh, can she?
I see her. There she, okay. Can you hear us, Kristen?
Yes, I hear.
Oh, welcome.
Hello.
Did you want to, yeah, what would you like to share about the potential for this no interest loan program?
That's a good idea. For us for 0% loan that can help our business survive to the construction to next year.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, and I'm sorry. Would you please say your full name for the record?
Kristen too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
For the loan payments, is there a delay period at all from when they get the loan to when they make their first payment, or is it the month after they receive the loan?
It would start, as it's set up right now, it would start 30 days after the loan would be made.
Okay. Great. And then I see in the draft you were originally suggesting 30,000. Was the 40,000 because we heard from that business that they would definitely need $40,000, which would be a fine answer if yes, or was there other things that went into that?
Essentially, yes. Although the 30, honestly, I completely made it up. And I checked with Bob to see if he had actually recommended that. He couldn't remember coming up with a number.
Yeah.
So I actually feel, this is a total aside, but I'm very proud of myself for getting a number that was so commonly repeated because I wasn't basing it on anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 40,000 was like, okay, one said at least 40, and they've been here for a
At
long
least
time.
40,
So
yes. Could use
if
more.
that's truly the number that they need to make it through construction, I didn't want, it to be arbitrary.
Yeah, I mean, it would, in business, yeah, many times 30,000 sounds like enough, but if it's not, then you've given them $30,000 and their business is gonna fail. So, yeah, I mean, you've stated it, I think everybody stated it, but just from being on the downtown Winooski board, the businesses were, I think terrified is an appropriate word after last year. And as we all know, they were hoping that the city could do something, and we didn't know what we could do. And a lot of staff hours were put into trying to figure out what we could do in meetings at the state level and many different levels. So to come up with, 0% interest, which is about as close to a grant as you can get, I'm sure it is so appreciated by the Main Street businesses, but also by the businesses in the circle that, if everything in Main Street were to fail, doesn't actually bode well for the circle businesses either. So this is really great to see.
Yeah, I also feel I feel comfortable with the 40 again, because there might be some businesses who need less than that, and that gives us the wiggle room to give those grants. But if there's someone who really needs 40, and they're go through this process and that's confirmed, I definitely feel comfortable with that. And thinking of it too as this, not sure if there would be funds for this, but thinking a little bit of it like a pilot before the bridge project too feels very valuable. So it definitely, maybe we'll have slightly different data for the bridge, but this feels good to start from here.
Yeah.
Christine. Loan, not a grant.
Loan, sorry.
And then just making sure that everybody's clear.
Yes.
And then just to continue that thought about the Rotary, for anyone who's listening now or later, we are not sure if we are going to have money for this program at 0% for the circle businesses once the bridge goes in. But we're optimistic that there will be some to recycle. And again, thanks to Bob for actually that being more of a possibility than it was before him.
Yeah.
I see Kristen's hand raised. Maybe again. Kristen, if you have another comment, you can come off mute.
There you go. I have just have questions. If we have the loans, when do we have to pay the first payment? Do we have to wait? Do they give us like a year after we have that loan, or when we have to make that payment?
The payments would start at 30 days after.
30 days after?
Yeah.
Okay. can they extend a little bit longer?
Bob, is there any, did you
I
guys
think
have a
anything-
discussion about that?
Yeah, because the construction is hurts its business, so if they can attend like 6 months or something, that could be helpful for us too. That's why we need that loan to, have that little bit to help us business survive to construction, so but we need attention a little bit month, not after next month, we have to pay a bill.
So as of tonight, I couldn't commit to that, but I will
Okay.
certainly get back with Elaine and Angela tomorrow with some thoughts, and what our regulatory and statutory obligations will be
Okay,
after reviewing our documents.
appreciate
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Okay. Yeah, great, quick work.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hearing support from council, would someone like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute as presented, noting a $40,000 cap instead of $30,000?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you
Amazing.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
You as
Bob.
well.
That is the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries and meeting adjourned. Thank you.